In this episode of Tales from the Haunted Nights, we are looking into the story of the Pendle Witches. Lancashire, 1612. A family feud started a witch hunt on a scale never been seen before. Elizabeth Southern, more commonly known as Demdike, was considered a witch by many in her local area. She lived with her daughter Elizabeth Device and Elizabeth's children, James, Alison and Jeanette. It was not considered unusual that the whole family believed in magic and they could use it. For a long time, witch hadn't necessarily mean evil. It could often be meant as a term for a healer or wise woman. Alison Device was on her way to Jordan Forest when she encountered a peddler named John Law. It was unclear whether she was meant to purchase them or beg for them, but Alison requested for some pins, metal pins, often associated with witchcraft in the 17th century. The man, peddler John Law, said no. This would be the beginning of the end for Alison. Alison cursed the peddler before the two went their separate ways, only to watch him stumble and fall moments later. Nowadays, we would perceive this as an unlucky coincidence, even though we can't be 100% sure. Most historians believe that John Law suffered a stroke after an exchange with Alison's. Remarkably, there is no initial accusations against Alison for having caused John Law's illness. In fact, it was Alison herself who was convinced of her own power and immense guilt for what she had done. So much so that she accompanied Abraham Law to his father's bedside to beg for forgiveness in an attempt to reverse the curse she believed that she had placed upon him. Her belief in her own abilities to cause others harm through witchcraft essentially meant that she was admitting to the crime, and it was this that led Alison, Elizabeth and James Device to appear before Roger Knowles on the 30th of March 1612. This was not a family that stuck together in times of crisis. Alison's brother James told Noel that his sister had also confessed to bewitching a local child, and while there is no record of Elizabeth trying to defend her children, she did tell Noel that her mother, Demdike, had a mark on her body that resembled a witch's mark, proof that the devil himself had made a pact with the old woman. Whether she was caught up in the frenzy without truly considering the consequences, or she was inherently vindictive, which seems hard to believe from a girl so consumed by guilt. Alison then went on to accuse Anne Whittle, known as Chattox, and her daughter Anne Redfern of witchcraft. Chattox was the matriarch of another Pendle family associated with witchcraft. The two families despised each other. Alison may have believed that Chattox and Anne were really witches, or she simply saw the chance for revenge. She accused Chattox of murdering 5 men, including her father John's Device, perhaps to get back at them, after a member of the Chattox family broke into the Device home, Malkin Tower, and stole some goods in 1601. Demdike, Chattox and Anne Redfern were summoned to appear before Knowles on the 2nd of April 1612. Though vulnerable, both Demdikes and Chattox were blind and in their 80s at this time. They both admitted to selling their souls to the devil. Anne refused to do such a thing like the Devices. This was another family that believed in all or nothing. for her own mother accused her of making clay figures, which is used to practice witchcraft. To no surprise at all, Noel sent all of them to Lancaster Castle, awaiting official trial in the next assizes. Perhaps this would have been the end of it. To have rooted 4 witches out of this town would have been a success for Knowles. But on Good Friday, 10th of April 1612, Elizabeth Device organised a meeting at Malkin Tower. These were sympathisers to the family's plight attended, and to feed them James Device stole a local sheep. When word reached Noel and an inquiry was carried out, 8 more people had attended the meeting, were accused of witchcraft. 7 of them were sent to join the others at Lancaster Castle. Elizabeth Device, James Device, Alice Nutter, Catherine Hewitt, John Balcock, Jane Balcock, Alice Gray, and Jeanette Preston. Jeanette Preston lived across the border in Yorkshire and was therefore sent to the York Assizes for her trial. She was found guilty of witchcraft and hanged on the 29th of July 1612. Of those accused, Alice Nutter was set apart from the rest on account of her class. While the majority of the people caught up in the Pendle witch trial were peasantry, Alice was from a fairly wealthy family in Roughly and now a widow, owned her own land. Today, it is thought likely that she would have been spotted at Malkin Tower on her way to another meeting with a group of local Catholics, for the Nutter family were known to be loyal to the Catholic faith. To keep her fellow Catholics safe, Alice said nothing at all aside from pleading not guilty at her trial. The trials took place from the 18th to the 19th of August 1612. The accused were denied witnesses to plead their innocence, and in a remarkable turn of events, the key witnesses for the prosecution was Elizabeth Device's younger child, 9-year-old Jeanette Device. Unusual for a child of 9 to take a place as a key witness in a case such as this. But in demonology, Charles I's own handwritten book made a case that trying to punish witches for their crimes, the evidence of children was taken by the courts. History has dealt Jeanette Device something of an unkind hand. Since 1612, she's often been remembered as the evil child who turned on her own family, which seems like a particularly unfair accusation when so many of her own family had already accused each other of the crimes that led to the trial in the first place. And it is true that there didn't appear to be any closeness of affection within the Device family household. Jeanette was treated poorly by the rest of her family, but we'll never know for certain whether it was dislike of her family or more likely pressure from the adults who were using her as a witness that made her say, "My mother is a witch, and I know that to be true. I have seen her spirit in the likeness of a brown dog, which she calls Ball. The dog did ask what she would like him to do, and she answered that she would like him to help her to kill." When Jeanette appeared in the courtroom, Elizabeth Device screamed at her until she was forced to be removed from the room so that evidence could be heard, knowing that whatever words were about to come out of her youngster's mouth would be the words that condemned her and the rest of her family to death. James Device also accused his mother of witchcraft, claiming he had seen her make clay figures of one of her victims, and was in turn accused of witchcraft himself by Jeanette's testimony. Alison continued to admit her guilt, and the old Demdike did not appear at trial. She died in horrible conditions at Lancaster Castle, waiting for the assizes. By the end of the trial, only one person was found not guilty, Alison Gray. The remaining 9 were hanged on the 20th of August 1612. Janet Device disappeared from history until 24th of March 1634, when a Jeanette Device become one of 20 tried at Lancaster for the crimes of witchcraft, accused of the murder of a woman named Elizabeth Nutter by a 10-year-old boy named Edmund Robinson. Though Robinson later admitted to fabricating his story and the 20 weren't executed, it was thought likely that Jeanette ended her days in the same way as Demdike did, dying in Lancaster Castle. Despite being pardoned, there is no official record of Jeanette's death, but according to the record from the 22nd of August 1636, she was still incarcerated. In 2012, Lancashire commemorated 400 years since the trials, a time when belief and hysteria led to one of the darkest periods in Lancaster's history. A statue of Alice Nutter by the local artist David Palmer was unveiled in Ruffley. Lancashire has since been called the Witch County, and even the Lancaster University, one of the colleges, takes the name Pendle, with a witch on her broomstick as its logo. Haunted Night started in 2019 as we investigate the story and hauntings behind the paranormal phenomena that happens around Pendle Hill. We bring you closer than anyone else on interactive ghost walks around the home villages of the Pendle Witches. Many phenomena has been reported by locals in the area, from dark shadows, and with our interactive ghost hunts, you will be able to get closer than ever to the real story of the Pendle Witches. But go further and follow in the witches' footsteps as we travel to Lancaster on our interactive ghost walk around the execution site of the witches. Travel around the areas as they would have done. Get closer than ever to the story.